Hello everybody and welcome back to another new vlog. Thank you for joining me once again. First of all, apologies for any wind noise you might be able to hear in the background. There's not really anything I can do about that, I'm afraid. I'm over at Edgbaston Reservoir, just about a mile or so outside of Birmingham city centre, and it's a really interesting place. I've been here a few times before, but the last couple of times I've been, I've noticed something very different to today. In fact, a couple of things very different to today. Firstly, I'm noticing that the Birmingham skyline is changing rapidly, and I'll show you a picture of that in a little while. But also what I'm noticing is the water level is very, very low, much lower than I've ever seen it before. And I can illustrate that by these trees behind me. If you take a look at these two trees behind me, you can see very clearly on the camera where the water level has been on the trees. It's washed the base of the trees clean, and that makes for a really, really interesting composition. What I've also got, if you can tell just behind me, there are some tree roots here that lead us towards those trees. I'm going to step back a little bit as well and show you something else. As I walk back, you can see some rocks at the side of the path, and those rocks with the tree roots just below them leading you towards those two trees make a really interesting composition. So I took a photo of that, f16, 1/15 of a second, ISO 100, and now I'm going to move on and have a look for some more interesting compositions. I know there are some around here. This just illustrates it perfectly, just how low the level of the water is. As you can see, as I swing round, there's one of the red life buoys at the side of the reservoir here, which obviously would be much closer to the water ordinarily. Now, standing where I'm standing, you can see how low the water level is behind me. But standing where I'm standing right now, normally the water level would be up around my chest or around my neck height. So it's amazing that I can actually stand here, but it's also a little bit worrying. For a city the size of Birmingham with a reservoir like this, which should be a huge, huge reserve for water, we've got virtually nothing in it. But there are some interesting compositions along this little stretch, almost of beach I would have said, right at the edge of the reservoir. So I'm going to stop here and see if I can capture another shot here. I think there is one just behind me. These two tree trunks behind me, the trees themselves are beautiful, but the trunks are absolutely perfect. You can see again the level of the water on the trees where it's washed the base of the trees completely clean. So there's no moss or lichen or anything like that stuck to the base of the trees. So it really gives an amazing contrast between the area where the water has been and above the water line. So I quite like that image, but there's a great deal of detail in the very base of these two trees. So I wanted to try and capture that at the 50mm lens out, f1.8, a 320th of a second and ISO 100. And it's a focus stack because with the 50mm lens I'm quite close to this tree here, and this tree behind it is slightly out of focus at f1.8. So a focus stack works here, so I can get the focus on that tree and also on that tree with two separate images, and then I'll combine them afterwards. So I've done a full sweep now, a full circuit of Edgbaston Reservoir, and I've got to tell you that on the opposite side of the reservoir to where I'm standing now, there wasn't really that much worthwhile capturing photos of. There was one little spot where there's a concrete hut that's been built, and I don't know what it's for or what it was used for when it was in use, but now it's obviously covered in graffiti, and somebody has somehow managed to get a bike on the top of it, a push bike, and managed to stand that up. So you've got this concrete structure, this concrete shelter with a push bike on the top of it. So I took a photo of that while I was there, but also then I've carried on round, and I couldn't really vlog anymore at the far end of the reservoir, because when I got there I found that because it was all very open, there was nothing at all to stop the wind, and I couldn't hear myself think, let alone actually speak loud enough to be able to make you guys hear. So I didn't bother vlogging anything there, but also I found a couple of relics as well of the reservoir itself. There's a couple of chains that are kind of on these iron structures that lead out into the reservoir itself, and it looks as though they're some sort of machinery that's involved with the dredging and whatever, cleaning off the reservoir. I don't know how that works, to be quite honest, but I took a handheld photo of that as well on the way around, but that was about all. The real reason I came back to this spot though was to get a panoramic sweep of the Birmingham skyline. I don't know how well you can see it in the background, but that looks really interesting and would make for a great panorama. I'm obviously going to have to get the 70 to 300mm lens out and zoom in probably to about 300mm to make sure I get a decent shot of those buildings along the Birmingham skyline. But I'm going to give it a go anyway. So that's the Birmingham skyline panorama, folks. I hope it's worked out. If it has, you've already seen it. But I'm going to call that the last image of the day. It is now lunchtime and my tummy's rumbling, something rotten, so it's kind of telling me I need to have something to eat. So I hope you've enjoyed this vlog, and if you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and also please remember to subscribe to the channel. And I look forward to seeing you again on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.